Sri Krishna Parabrahmane Namaha. Sri Sadguru Paramatmane Namaha. Sarva Maharshibhyo Namaha. 28th Sloka. Dravya Yajnaha Tapo Yajna Gnana Yajnaha Tatapare Swadhyaya Yajnana Yajnascha Yatayah Thamsita Vrataha. Substance. Others offer wealth, austerity, and yoga as sacrifice, and again others, the ascetics of rigid vows, offer study and knowledge as sacrifice. Commentary. Some other forms of yajnas are mentioned here. First one, Dravya Yajna, wealth offered to deserving persons, dana, and for benevolent purposes, that is considered as a form of sacrifice. Second, Tapo Yajna, subjecting the body and senses to severe austerities by vows of fasting and silence, etc., is the form of sacrifice. Third, Yoga Yajna, breath control is a form of sacrifice. Fourth, Swadhyaya Yajna, the study and recitation of the Vedas and other sacred texts is a form of sacrifice. Fifth, Gnana Yajna, the pursuit of spiritual knowledge is a form of sacrifice. Different types of persons, according to their samskaras, follow different methods of sacrifice, and performing them, their mind reaches their final goal. All these are men of practical action in the field of spirituality. Those who work for self purification and God realization are all men of rigid vows. Samsita hard discipline, self restraint, the practice of vows, and some other sadhanas are all necessary for self purification. The past samskaras, the physical habits, and mental tendencies have become a part and parcel of one's nature. To change them is indeed an uphill task. Perseverance will ultimately conquer. Nothing can be done in a day. All crookedness shall be made straight in course of time. The idle and weak cannot make any progress. Spiritual realization has its price, and the price is self control and renunciation. Renunciation of what? Of all the silly and worthless pleasures of the world. Indeed, the price is very small compared to the fruit of attainment, the eternal bliss of Brahmagnana. It is like obtaining pure gold in exchange for worthless alloy. Who would not pay this price willingly and correctly? The difficulty is not so great as it is thought of. The initial attempt disturbs the body and the mind as a result of the new discipline. But the discipline itself becomes natural by habit. The ascetic, yati, mentioned here is not a sannyasi but a worker on the spiritual path. A huge tree cannot be cut with a nail chipper. The axe is needed, and the axe to cut the mighty tree of ignorance and delusion is persistent, hard, unremitting discipline, restraint, and control. 29th Sloka. Apane juhvati pranam, pranopanam tatapare, pranapanagati rudva, pranayama parayanaha. Substance. The technique of breath control is described here as a form of sacrifice. In the science of Ashtanga Yoga, the fourth stage is pranayama. This practice is helpful in removing the diseases of the body and keeping the mind still. Pranayama has three parts. Breathing in is called puraka. Expelling the breath is called rechaka, and the retention of breath is called kumbhaka. Pranayama is often accompanied with some holy mantra like Om. Breathing, prana, is closely connected with the operations of the mind. It is everybody's experience. When the gust of passion disturbs the mind, the breath becomes atones, irregular, and as the passion cools down, the breath also becomes normal. When the breath is irregular owing to some physical exertion, it is again impossible to concentrate the mind. So, regularity of breathing always accompanies mental concentration. By controlling the breath, The mind is also controlled. For this reason, breath control is prescribed as a healthy and helpful practice in spiritual life. The seeker has to learn the technique from a competent master. Here, breath control is mentioned as a form of sacrifice. 30th Sloka. Apare niyataharaha प्राणान् प्राणेषु जुह्वति सर्वेप्येते यज्ञविदो यज्ञक्षपितकल्मषाः. Substance. Others of regulated food sacrifice the life breaths in the life breaths. All these also are knowers of sacrifice whose sins are destroyed by sacrifice. Commentary. Thus far, the Lord has explained 12 different types of yajnas. Of these, the last two are the regulation and control of food habits. No one should commit the mistake of doubting what connection there is between food and spiritual attainment. Without fear of any exaggeration, it can be asserted that food is the first thing about which the seeker should be extremely careful. Otherwise, all this effort will come to naught. Overeating and or undereating and eating at all odd times in all places, all types of food from all kinds of persons, all this should be carefully avoided. It is food that is turned into physical energy, which in its turn is turned into mental energy that leads to spiritual illumination. Impure food not only unhinges the physical body but also irritates and provokes all kinds of undesirable humors which are detrimental to self control. Some kinds of food, like meat, garlic, and spices, induce physical aberration, like indulgence in sex and irritability of temper, cruelty in word and deed, and other discordant impulses. They are all obstacles to spiritual progress. Just as a loose nut in a complicated machine brings it to a standstill, just as a train meets with disaster if one of the sleepers is taken off, even so, the whole system of spiritual life is disrupted if care is not taken about food. If the food is pure, the mind is pure. If the mind is pure, liberation is attained. The Lord here mentions that regulation of food is also a yajna. There are 5 conditions to determine the quality of food: purity, moderation, righteous earning, offering to the Lord, timeliness. The Lord has described various spiritual disciplines, and each of them is given the sacred name of yajna. We understand that the old concept of yajna as a Vedic ritual accompanied with elaborate technique is given up and a new significance is attached to other forms of discipline. Besides, it is here affirmed that all those who practice any of these disciplines are knowers of sacrifice, yajna vidaha. What then is the use of yajnas? It is first and last a method of purification. All the sins of the past and all the evil tendencies of the mind are destroyed by yajna. So, it is imperative that the seeker should undertake some form of discipline and strive to attain purity, which alone can lead him to self realization. Question: what is the effect of performing yajna? Answer: all sins are destroyed by yajna. The good resulting from the performance of yajna and the evil from its non performance are explained. 31st Sloka. Yagnasishtamruta bhujo yanti brahma sanatanam nayam lokoscha yagnasya kutonyah kurusattama. Substance. Those who eat the remnants of sacrifice, which is nectar, go to eternal Brahman. To the non sacrificer, even this world is not. How then can he get a higher world? Commentary. Thus far, having explained various yajnas, the Lord now states their great merit. The remnants of food offered as sacrifice are equal to nectar, and by tasting it, one reaches eternal Brahman. So the seeker should perform some form of yajna, some devotional act, some righteous deed, some oblation to the divine, and then only should he take his food. Such food confers immortality. It has already been said that yajna destroys all sin and evil. Now the highest reward is offered to the sacrificer, the attainment of Brahman. The purified mind merges in Atma, and the Atma alone shines in its original untainted light. This is the Atmic state, the realization of Brahman. How wonderful is the fruit for sacrifice! The greatness of the result is proof of the excellence of the cause. Yajna is the cause, and the result is direct realization of Brahman. In this world, man endures all trouble for the purpose of acquiring a bit of wealth or pleasure or fame. After all, they are brief and short lived. But the knowledge of self is an external blessing for man. Should we not aspire for it? If the same energy which one expends for possessing this or that worldly object is directed towards the spiritual goal, man can achieve the highest even in his life. The Lord has offered ample choice in selecting the yajna most available to each individual. Various paths are open for this spiritual quest. Any one practice leads to the goal. Let people be alert and watchful, and they shall attain the goal. The non sacrificer loses both the worlds. What enjoyment or happiness or joy can he have, even in this world? Indisciplinary men who have neither will nor knowledge cannot hope to make anything, even in this earthly life. It is all misery, doubt, and despair for them, and such men proceed from sorrow to sorrow. It should be understood that success in attaining purity is also the fruit of sacrifice, that is, the result of self discipline and proper action. If one cannot do this, how can he hope to enter a higher world? The Lord calls on mankind, O ye mortal beings, having attained this human birth, if you do nothing for your spiritual uplift, you cannot get anything, even in this life, much less in the next world. Those who eat the remnant of sacrifice, food is not a necessary ingredient in such yajnas, like self restraint, self control, pranayama, etc. So, in these cases, the word food may be understood as the nectar of peace and joy arising from spiritual practices. Question: what is the nature of Brahman? Answer: eternal and imperishable. Question: who attains Brahman? Answer: those who take the remnant of sacrifice. Question: what is the fate of the non sacrificer? Answer: he loses both this world and the next.